chose to do my informative speech on procrastination, signs of it, reasons for it, and how to prevent it. In order to determine if you yourself are a procrastinator is to ask yourself, when completing an assignment, do you typically do it now or do you wait until tomorrow to do it? I typically wait until tomorrow. I'm a procrastinator. The definition of that is just delaying or deferring an important task or assignment until a later date. Now, there are different levels and severities of being a procrastinator. If you only put off your important work for a day, you don't have that much to worry about. But in order to measure your time from start to finish and how long it takes you to complete an assignment, if it takes you a long time, say 5 days to complete one thing, you're a procrastinator and you need to fix it. Now, signs of being a procrastinator seen in people are going to be if you have low self-esteem. Typically these people set high standards for themselves even though they know they're not going to be able to complete tasks to that level. Therefore, they get discouraged when they try and they just push it off because they lack motivation because they know they're not going to complete it to their standards and they're going to be disappointed if they do it now. So they just forget about it and push it off. People that typically make excuses, any reason to justify why it's okay to procrastinate. So if you're someone who thinks that being too tired or you gotta watch this TV show or there's something else more important than your homework, you're just justifying laziness. Also, people that constantly reassure themselves to make sure that they feel in control. So people that push something off but think they have a good reason and think that the only reason they're pushing it off is because they want to, are just reassuring themselves and trying to pretend that they're in control, and that's not okay. Typically, procrastinators tend to think that they work well under pressure, and that's their reassurance as to why it's okay to push their work off, but really they're just not working to their full potential, and maybe they get a B working under pressure and they think that that's good, but if they would have started their project or studying ahead of time and gotten on top of things, they could have gotten an A, showing that really they don't work well under pressure. They work better with more time. Reasons that people procrastinate are going to be if they're overwhelmed. Typically, college students don't just have school to worry about. They're working, they play a sport, they're in church, they have multiple things that they have to juggle at the same time. And this makes them become discouraged easily because they have such an intense workload, and it's just easier to ignore that, ignore the anxiety, and just fake yourself into being able to relax and pretending that you don't have things to do, because it's just an easier way to deal with everything. Also, people transitioning from high school to college have a problem with procrastinating because the workload is too difficult. In high school, they didn't have to study, they didn't really have to do their homework ahead of time, they could just wait until the night before, do it, and they would do well on their tests. But once they come to college, they realize that the material is much more difficult and they can't get away with that, but they still try to do it because that's what they're used to and that's the work ethic they've developed. But it makes them procrastinate and they don't do well in the end. People also tend to procrastinate because of fear. They're afraid for their peers, friends, family, whoever, to see them do bad in something they're trying at. And it's easier for people to accept failure because they didn't try, rather than getting the same exact failing grade after studying for a week in advance. So instead they just don't try because they think in their head they're not going to do good, and they'd rather tell their friends that they did bad because they didn't try and laugh it off that way, rather than really struggling because they studied for a long time and still don't know why they didn't do good. Now, ways to overcome and prevent procrastination would be to become more organized. People that procrastinate don't think about all the things they need to accomplish. In fact, they put that in the back of their head, and that's the exact last thing they think about until the night before when they start to panic. If you make to-do lists and schedules as to when things are due, when you should start working on them, you're more likely to stick to that schedule and get things done on time. Also, prioritizing your work from what's harder and what's easier and getting the tasks that are harder done first is going to boost your confidence and give you that motivation to complete all of your work when you break it up into little batches, especially getting the most difficult stuff out of the way first, and you're just left with a few easy assignments that aren't going to take you much time and you know you can complete. Peer pressure is going to help you also prevent procrastination because people are less likely to allow themselves to procrastinate and do bad in something if it means they're going to disappoint someone other than themselves. So having your friend or parent or someone important in your life that you don't want to let down know what your schedule is, when you have an exam, when your assignment's due, and when you need to start studying or working on that, you're going to be more likely to complete it ahead of time because you don't want to disappoint them. And if for some reason you still lack motivation, that person's going to know when your due date is. And if they see you on the couch watching TV 2 days before, they're going to get on you and make sure to try to motivate you to get your stuff done. Also, another way to help prevent procrastinating is to develop some type of reward and punishment system. If you're constantly doing good and rewarding yourself, you feel good about it. You are going to earn a good grade in the long run. You're going to have more time to watch TV, hang out with your friends, and just do activities that don't require you to apply yourself. Whereas if you punish yourself every time you start working on something late or in the long run get a bad grade, you're less likely to do that the next time you have something due or you have something to study for because you've already dealt with the consequences of putting things off, such as getting a bad grade or having to study all week, but you put it off until the weekend, and now you're stuck at home studying while the rest of your friends are out having a good time because they completed their work when they should have. Now, although there's plenty more signs and reasons and ways to prevent procrastination, these to me are the most significant. And basically, people just need to realize that they're never going to be able to totally stop feelings of wanting to push things off and stop procrastinating. It's in human nature, it's always going to happen, but if you develop a system of ways to recognize the problem early on, you're going to be able to complete your work ahead of time, and eventually, in the long run, it's going to work out in your best interest. Here's my audience, Tori, Elizabeth, and Chelsea, and that concludes my speech.